If you're looking to conceive, you're in the right place because Kirsten Karchmer will talk about the roadmap to optimal fertility with Conceivable AI app. What's so special about Kirsten is she's the CEO of Conceivable and Brazen, author of Seeing Red, and she's a trailblazer in women's health and fertility tech. And as the founder and CEO of Conceivable Technologies, Kirsten pioneered AI-driven solutions to uncover the hidden factors affecting women's ability to conceive. And also, she's delivering through this app personalized evidence-based interventions that improve both fertility and long-term health. And she's a former board-certified reproductive acupuncturist, and she has helped over 10,000 women in her 20-year clinical career. So, the first question I have is, what's the secret to your success? And how did you start on this journey of helping women with their health and their fertility?
Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu. Mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to get to talk with you today. And, I think a lot of this started in my 20s. I was struggling with some health issues myself and ended up going to see an acupuncturist who definitely, I got over the problems that I was dealing with. But more importantly, I started to understand that what we have to do in order to help people to be healthy, whether it's their fertility, diabetes, heart disease, any chronic condition, is we have to look beneath the surface. In conventional medicine, often we're like one problem, one fix, right? Like you have vitamin D deficiency, you give a vitamin D supplement, but maybe you don't ever go outside, right? There's almost always a mirage of diet, lifestyle, and behavioral factors that are causing or contributing to that problem. And if we address it with supplements and behavior and diet and lifestyle, we can make a huge difference. And so I got really excited about using the menstrual cycle as a biometric. Every single aspect of a woman's period gives us information about how healthy or not healthy she is. And so, as soon as I got out of school, I just decided I'm going to be a world-renowned fertility expert. I'm going to apply this to fertility. And it turns out they'd actually been doing it for more than 3,000 years in Chinese medicine. But, that's the sort of the beginning of my story.
Thank you. So tell us, what kind of achievements have you already achieved with this particular app and with your fertility experience in terms of helping women globally to conceive? How successful has it been so far?
So, when I was one of the first reproductive acupuncturists in North America, there I treated well over 10,000 patients. We didn't quantify our outcomes as much as we can now because of technology. But now with the app, we did do a pilot. This is before all the AI was added into the app. We were comparing, we had 100 women just coming to the clinic for acupuncture twice a week with me, and 100 women just using the app, no human interaction. And my thought was well, if the app can be even 50% as good as me at a fraction of the cost, it will still help a lot of people. That's the big ego part of me. I was I'm so good, the app can't, it's technology, there's no humans, there's no acupuncture. Well, the app beat me.
Thank you. What are the types of things that impact a woman's fertility?
So everything. Everything affects her fertility, how she lives. So if we start at the foundation, the number one thing that can really be a predictor of her likelihood of getting and staying pregnant is her energy level. And when I mean energy on a 1 to 10 without any caffeine or exercise for 2 whole days. Because exercise, if we're tired, it produces adrenaline, so we feel more energetic. That's why tired people man, I love exercising. It's hard to get started, but then I feel so good because they get a bunch of adrenaline. It can also be because of what they're eating, right? So if they're tired because their diet is inappropriate for what their body needs, that will show up. If they're tired, they may have digestive issues like gas, bloating, fatigue after meals. That tells us that the ability to take the food that they're eating, break it down, and absorb it, convert it into energy, blood, and hormones is also compromised. So the starting place is always like the first question that we always ask in the app and in person if we're doing consultations is, how's your energy? Because if the energy level is low, all of those things that we just talked about need to be examined, because that will also typically have an influence on the quality and quantity of menstrual blood, which can impact implantation. It will determine how high the temperatures get after ovulation, which can impact progesterone, things like that. So we try to use, what we borrowed from Chinese medicine. Like if you look at this app, even if you're an acupuncturist, you might not know that the whole app is basically doing Chinese medicine, because we just changed all the names. Like instead of saying, an acupuncturist is assessing someone's qi, right, their energy, we just turned it into language that's very conventional for, modern Western people. How's your energy? And then we look at the factors contributing to that.
Thank you. What are the top 5 most important things women can do to optimize their fertility?
The first and most important is to figure out, whether you read a book or, do something, work with me, use our app, figure out what are all of those underlying issues. Is there enough blood? Are the temperatures high enough? Is your cycle regular? Do you have good quality cervical discharge? What's your environment like? So many factors. Instead of saying like, these are the top 5 things, the top 5 things are each individual's top 5 things. Right. So for that person that we talked about before, like maybe she's over exercising, maybe she isn't sleeping enough, maybe her diet isn't great. Well, her top 3 things are exercise less, use the apps because she'll do custom menu planning for you, and use digestive enzymes and colostrum to fix the gut issue. And I think that that's the biggest thing that we think is like, especially because of social media, so often people are like, you'll see somebody go, oh, I took this is a baby in a bottle, Geritol. And that's what you always see on TikTok. And Geritol just happens to have a lot of iron in it, kind of junky iron. And so if you're anemic and you take Geritol, it actually might get you pregnant because it might make enough blood to make a uterine lining more receptive. So that's my point, is I think the conversation that I want to lead, that I want to change, is how do we help people understand there isn't a fix? Obviously sleeping more, managing the things that we do in the app, sleep more, manage your stress, make sure that you're monitoring your heart rate variability, take your temperatures, eat the best quality food that you can. Those kind of things obviously are going to help everybody. But we can progress people's fertility exponentially faster if we know what to work on.
Thank you. Are there some things that people widely believe work for fertility and they actually don't work at all?
That's such a great question. I have to think about that for a second. So first of all, the position. So some people, I'm going to have a family-friendly conversation here, just in case we have any, younger people listening. But position of intercourse, people think that, on top or cowboy or whatever is going to maybe, I don't know what I can say, get things closer together. But the reality is there's no research to show that any position. There is a little bit of research that actually having an orgasm at the time of conception, not to put pressure on anybody, but because the cervix opens a little bit when you have an orgasm, which makes the ability of the sperm to pass through a little bit easier. Small. I always say the most important thing is to have fun. Other things is like take maca. You see this everywhere. People like all taking maca because some people are making some videos. There's just not a single study that's ever been published that maca does anything except for menopause. Small impact on sperm. Next is obviously Geritol. The problem with Geritol, a lot of people are taking Geritol. The problem is that Geritol has a lot of iron in it, but if you're taking a quality prenatal, you're double dosing on iron, and iron gets stored in the muscles, tissues, and cells, organs. So we want to avoid that.
Thank you. What are the top things that have worked for those women that you've already helped? And I do understand everyone is different, but have you found there is there are some top 5 things that have already worked for the women that you've already helped that seem to be like the same types of things?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me back up just a little. So the most common problems that we see are fatigue. Everybody's really tired, very high levels of stress, and sometimes that people aren't aware. Like I'll ask them, how stressed are you? And they'll say, kind of stressed. But then if we measure their heart rate variability, which is different than heart rate, we see that number is very low, and that's actually a measure of resilience. And so really working on resilience makes everything go faster. And let me just explain, because the science is, if you're not familiar with this, heart rate variability, when you're resilient, you're like an orange buoy on the ocean. You're just like floating, and a big tsunami comes and it pushes you to the bottom, and you just pop back up, and then you start riding the waves again. But when your resilience is low, that wave comes, you break apart a little bit, you take on some water, you're kind of hovering underneath the water trying to get up to the surface. And so using things, so when our resilience is low, it means the majority of the day we're spending in flight or fright, which means we're pumping out tremendous amounts of adrenaline, which is very inflammatory, injurious to our eggs, ovaries, uterine lining, sperm. So those two, like managing energy, managing stress, really just like reducing sugar can play a huge role for most people. 1 in 3 people have insulin resistance, prediabetes, and the higher your blood sugar, the lower your fertility. So making sure that we're, having diets that are healthy in protein, fiber, and fat. If you're using our app, she just interviews you, and then she does all of your menu planning for you to make it a lot easier. We know, like, what we tried to do in the app is like, how do we do everything for you that's hard and complicated that would keep you from doing the things that are going to help you to optimize your fertility?
Thank you. Would you agree if I said that in order to become to conceive, you would need to make it happen within a relatively short time frame? Because I'm talking about the fertility window in terms of the monthly. So what is that a relatively short window? And if yes, how can women kind of make it happen within that time frame? Is it that they need to have an app that kind of helps them to track their period and that kind of thing in order to make sure that they kind of make it happen within that time frame?
That is such a great question. It actually goes to a background question about, should we use monitors or trackers to predict ovulation? And I have such strong feelings about this, even though we have a wearable. The reality is that all of those trackers can identify, it's very easy to identify ovulation, so it's nothing fancy, but they can identify and predict likely around when you're going to ovulate. But the research is really clear on 2 things. One, that you have a better chance of getting pregnant if not having sex on the day of ovulation, but actually 3 days before ovulation, 1 day before ovulation, 1 day after ovulation, and 3 days after ovulation. Now that is, again, kind of complicated, and how do you predict that? The other piece of research that we have to know is that timing of ovulation is really important to determine the quality of your eggs. So if you ovulate between cycle day 14 and 16, that's perfect. You don't have anything to worry about. If that's true, your fertile window, meaning, to go to your question, Lily, when should you have intercourse? If you have a 28-day cycle, count back 14 days, that gets to cycle day 14. Then count back 3 days, that gets to cycle day 11. Then starting on cycle day 11, you just do it every other day, 11, 13, 15, and 17. And what happens is you basically spread sperm across 10 days. There's no way that you'll miss the fertile window. You're not going to get information. A lot of trackers and monitors, they give the users a lot of information. Oh, your PGG is this, and your estradiol is this, and your T4 is this. But the person doesn't know what it means, and it doesn't give any information about what to do. So what we try to do is then track that data, and then we teach them why what those things are happening, and then most importantly, we teach them how to fix it.
Thank you. How do you eliminate the stress of having to sort of, plan sex within a certain time frame? Because I think, when it's not planned, it tends to be a lot more exciting. When it is, it could be a bit like, not again, not now. So I wonder what you suggest to women.
So it does take some intention, right, to keep it. And not using a monitor, actually, people report that making a big difference, because it's not like, usually they use the monitor and they're like, honey, we're having sex after dinner tonight. Like, there's nobody can do, anything. And what happens is those monitors are capturing ovulation that's too late or too early, and then those people are having a high risk for miscarriage. So how do you do it? Well, if you can just say, like, we're going to have sex in the middle of the month a lot, that alone can actually make some difference. And then sometimes each person has to do their own little prelims, their own little tailgate parties that the days, if they're not feeling in the mood, using erotica or whatever, like, they feel comfortable with. But, even just sending like sexy texts, you just have to like up your sexy game, and you have to make it more playful so that it doesn't, like, one of my patients, she always says, she's like, well, I'm ovulating. I need my husband to come home and give me a deposit. That will kill all libido, And the other thing is that, when you have hormonal dysregulation, it can really affect your libido. So I always ask people, like, do you have the urge? Or is it that, like, do you have the urge when you don't have to have sex, or when you're by yourself, or when you're in the shower, or wherever you have private time? That means your libido is still intact. If not, then there's other things we need to work on. In the app, we basically built a therapy section. So the user can come in and talk to AI Me every day as much as they want about whatever's going on. And so if they're having libido problems, they can come in and be like, I have to have sex today. I'm just not in the mood. And she's not going to do anything, sexy with you, but she will help you to get your mind out of the way and do a little reset so that you can sort of get back on. And the last thing is kind of a game that I always say, it's harder for the men because they have to perform. But one of my patients told me the story where she calls it climb on sex. And she says, look, I'm not in the mood, and I don't care about the end here. We just need to get this done. If you just like hug me and kiss me for a couple of minutes, and then we'll use lubrication, and then you can just hop on and finish as fast as you want. And actually, the girl's husband was really happy about it, because sometimes he doesn't want to do the whole rigmarole too. He just wants to finish. So that's another option to sort of. And most people that have tried this, they're like, actually, once we start, then I kind of get in the mood anyways.
Thank you. Well, how do you help women to enroll their husbands or life partners into making this like a fun, enjoyable experience, aside from what you've just mentioned, so that it doesn't feel like such a drag?
On the sex part, or just the fertility journey part?
Yeah, both.
Well, I think for the sex part is, again, like, just, what I would do if I would like say, go out to drinks with your girlfriends and come up with a playlist of sexy things to sort of taunt and tease, and just do things to make it'll be fun for you too. It's not only for your partner, just to everybody's sex life will benefit from a little bit more play and creativity. And so especially you could go on GPT and ask GPT for ideas. GPT might say that that's like too sexy, but you could look for YouTube videos, any just ideas. But as literally a few margaritas with your friends will probably come up with some very creative, sexy things. Like one of my patients told me she plays a game called There's a New Sheriff in Town. And she just sent her husband like a picture of a sheriff's thing. And she's like, when you get home, you're doing exactly what I say. And then they just played a game around that. And he loved it. She's like, I'm not even having sex with you. You're going to have sex with yourself. And then, so anyways, just getting very creative. You might edit that out.
Thank you. Do you find that if the couples have a lot of sex, like every day, a few times a day, does that reduce the quality of the sperm, or does it make it better?
It can. So the research is pretty clear that it's optimal for every other day, unless the man has like a crazy amount of sperm. There are some studies, there's a lot of different studies. There is a study that shows like doing it 3 times on the day of ovulation produced really good results. And I was like, no woman did that study. I'm sure that study was by a guy. So I would try to limit it a little bit, because like they have to make the sperm, right? They ejaculate, and then they have to make more sperm. And so, especially from Taoism, they're like, try to conserve the sperm a little bit to conserve the resources of your guy. I do recommend that everyone trying to get pregnant does a semen analysis. And you probably have to pay out of pocket for it. We use a company called Legacy. The reason is that half of infertility cases now are related to male factor. And what often happens is the couple is trying, they're not getting pregnant, they do an IUI, they don't do a semen analysis, she doesn't get pregnant. She's thinking it's all her for a whole year. She's crying every time her period comes. She's like, I'm so broken, I can't do this. She's taking every supplement, she's doing everything. The guy's just like scratching his nuts, and he's like, I'm fine, I can. even if they had a previous child. And then what happens is that a year in, we discover there was a sperm problem. Most sperm problems can get corrected in about 4 months with diet, lifestyle, behavioral health, good quality supplements. But it takes some time. So now we're at 16 months of trying. It's a lot of suffering. And a big part of our mission at Conceivable is how do we reduce or eliminate unnecessary suffering? That's why I hate monitors, because I think it makes people too stressed out. That's why I don't want you guys to wait a year before you get testing, because again, like if we wait a whole year and the tubes are blocked, there was no chance that woman was going to get pregnant. And so every month she got her period, cried her eyes out, felt like she was a loser. And then in fact, it wasn't her fault. There was nothing she could do to get pregnant. She could like climb a mountain every single day and she wouldn't get pregnant.
Thank you. What are the worst things you've seen or heard of people doing in terms of trying to become pregnant?
Well, I think the biggest one is there's 3. And these are not what you would expect. The first one is jumping into assisted reproductive technology too fast, like jumping into doing IUI and IVF. And I don't have any aversion to any biomedical, biopharmacological intervention, but if you're not getting pregnant, it's likely some of those underlying issues that are really important to stay pregnant are not working yet. And an IUI will help you to get pregnant, but then we want to fix that, and then we have more risk for loss. So first of all, is like just preparing. Not preparing is the biggest thing. Just being like, well, like people say, I have a period, I guess I should get pregnant. And then they're like, I've been trying for 2 years, I'm still not pregnant, but I have a period. I'm like, okay, there's a lot more. Second, don't just follow TikTok things that you see, even though I'm on TikTok a lot. Check your work. So if you see, like I always talk about this product, Ovasitol, and it's for people with PCOS. It has a combination of 2 types of inositol, dichiro, myoinositol. Dichiro is really good if you have high testosterone, but only 2% of the population has high testosterone. If you take Ovasitol and you do not have high testosterone, you will get low testosterone because the dichiro will do its job. And low testosterone means low fertility. So we ended up just formulating a pure myoinositol just for people who are trying to get pregnant. So when you see something, you see somebody, and even if they're a doctor, even if it's me, if you hear something different than what you thought you knew to be true, just hop on Google, type in Google Scholar, and then ask the question, does dichiro-inositol hurt egg quality? Because you're like, wow, like 1,000 people said take dichiro, and this Kirsten girl said take pure inositol. Who's right? Look at the research. Even if it's a doctor, because even doctors are not giving accurate information 100% of the time.
Thank you. What are the kinds of metrics that Conceivable AI app?
Well, it tracks everything. So it tracks every single aspect of your period. And she does it in kind of an interesting way because she texts you at certain times of the month. Like right after around cycle day 7, she sends you a text, how's your period? How many days did you have? How long did you bleed? Was there cramping, clotting, color of blood? These are all the metrics. Around ovulation, she's interviewing them, asking them about ovulation. Did you have pain? Did you have cervical discharge? How many days? What do your temperatures look like? So we look at every single day of temperatures, every single menstrual characteristic. If the user is wearing our ring, and you don't have to use the ring to use the app, or use the app to use the ring, you can use them independently. But the ring does a lot of important things. It's similar to, you might have seen the Aura ring. The Aura ring is $350 to $550. That didn't make sense to me at all. Ours is $199 and seems fine. But ours accurately tracks basal body temperature, which is really important metric for us, accurately at 4 o'clock in the morning, so the user doesn't have to do anything. Blood sugar, which it's the first wearable, non-invasive wearable to monitor blood sugar, which I'm really, really proud of. We have a patent pending on that. And then those stress metrics, VO2 max and heart rate variability, so that if the person is reading high blood sugar, that's sending a message to her chef, changing her menus. If she's got low blood sugar, that's sending a message to the chef, this person needs to eat more and she needs more protein and fat, etc. And I forgot the rest of our question. I was so focused on my answer.
Yeah.
The metrics. Yeah. So the metrics. And then most importantly, in the app, there's just a button that says analyze. So if you hit that button, this is to solve that problem. People using trackers are like, but what does this mean? And what do I do? So you hit the analyze button. It doesn't look at one thing. We're never looking at one thing. It's not looking at one thing. It then recaps the whole picture. and then says, okay, this is what's gotten better, this is what stayed the same, this is what's gotten worse. Let me interview you some more to figure it out to make new recommendations.
Thank you. So in terms of the women that are already on the app, do you have like a tracker of how many of those got pregnant after a while, or?
Well, we've only been live on the beta version of our app, which is a web app version. We're about to be in iOS. Hopefully this week. We're waiting approval. So we had 200. We have about 200 people subscribed right now, just in the first. This is just from our like inner community people, and 21 pregnancies.
Okay, wow, very good.
So that's very fast because typically it takes 90 days to fix these problems. So I don't expect anybody to have a pregnancy for 90 days. So that we've had 21 out of 200 in the first 2 months is pretty remarkable. Probably those people were like sort of subfertile. And then what we also want to see is, not only pregnancy, we won't have this data for a year, but we want to see what are the live birth rates, because that's really the only metric that we care about. How many people delivered a healthy baby? Because everything we're doing is trying to build the foundation of healthier moms, healthier dads, fixing all the underlying sort of potholes that will keep people from getting pregnant and fix them so that they actually stay pregnant and have a healthy baby.
Thank you. For those potential moms that have PCOS, how likely is it that they can get pregnant?
It really depends. That's not a straightforward, that's a straightforward question, but not a straightforward answer. We have to remember there are 5 kinds of PCOS. Underneath each of those 5, every single woman who has PCOS will have a different presentation and different severity, right? Some people, if we look at their AMH, which is a blood test we can test, that number should be between 1 and 5. The higher it is, it's kind of a proxy for how severe your PCOS is. And so it's a good, if you have PCOS and your AMH is like 5.5, your PCOS is not going to impact that much your ability to get and stay pregnant. But if it's higher, it will, because that is a reflection of high levels of inflammation, insulin resistance, and hormonal disruption affecting egg quality. So we know that it makes it a lot harder to get and stay pregnant with PCOS, but we also know from the peer-reviewed data, many peer-reviewed studies, the most effective way to improve PCOS is through a personalized approach to diet, lifestyle, behavioral health. I would add exercise and environmental factors and stress management, which is exactly sort of the playbook of the app, because that's what Chinese medicine does, is how healthy we are in whatever condition we're presenting with is really just a reflection of all of those things, how that's how your body is responding to that.
Thank you. I wonder about the metrics and the checklist that you've designed in the app. How did you come up with that specific checklist and those specific metrics? Because I think there are so many variables that, women could have a gazillion different illnesses and, diabetes, and I don't know, so many different variables that could make it difficult to get pregnant. So I wonder how you came up with that amazing list of metrics and also recommendations for every single person. That is kind of like a customized plan.
It is. And this is why, so we basically took 10,000 hours of consultations and deconstructed them. So what are the questions that I typically ask? And all of that comes from Chinese medicine, right? So in Chinese medicine, we're assessing qi, blood, yin and yang, which is temperatures. We just call it temperatures in the app. Stagnation, which is stress, right? You can see it in your temperatures. If you have a lot of stress, it'll be very constricted. And so we basically, so a couple of things. Sorry for the awkward response here. First, treating 10,000 patients, I got the interview down, right? I did so many consultations and follow-up consultations with those people. And so I got down, what data do I need? Then also at one point I had about 20 acupuncturists working for me. And I thought the biggest problem is that no one on my team will come up with the same diagnosis. And that's a problem for clinical efficacy. We need to all be on the same team. So I started streamlining our ability to make a Chinese diagnosis based on those 5 categories, and we did that in the clinic. And then the recommendations are, again, you mentioned if they have a bazillion diseases, actually I don't care about any of the diseases. The diseases just inform us. So say the person has PCOS and endometriosis. We'll just start with those 2. Well, if they have PCOS, what we know is they likely have insulin resistance. They likely have a lot of inflammation. And if they have endometriosis, they also have a lot of inflammation. And if they have PCOS and endometriosis, their diet needs to be low glycemic and super anti-inflammatory. But because of the PCOS, easy to digest. Because people with PCOS often have digestive issues, gas, bloating, fatigue after meals. So what we want to be able to do is then we're not treating endometriosis or PCOS. We're first figuring out where is the inflammation coming from, because there are many sources. Even exercise can be a source of inflammation. Find out the sources, and then we coach her to start changing her behavior. We start using food, we might use supplements. And so then all of that gets personalized to the user. We're having a hard time getting approved in the App Store because the Apple Store wants a reference for every recommendation. But the AI is generating the recommendation in real time based on like the brain of the app. And so we're trying to find something that, I mean, we may just have like a button that you can just hit and say, can I see the science about this? And just at any time, whatever's on the screen, we hit the button it says. But that's one of the, complicating factors of doing all this with AI. No one has ever built any app like this before. So we're kind of like hopefully trailblazing again.
Thank you. Why is it so important to have high energy, and how acupuncture is contributing towards maybe unblocking those energy points in the body?
So again, the high energy is important because it is a reflection. It's like a test of how well can you take food, break it down, make energy. That's the first one. How well can you restore energy through sleep? And how well can you maintain energy throughout the day? So things that would impact that might be over-exercise, too strenuous of work, super stressed. And so the number of the person's energy level starts the conversation to figure out what are the problems underneath that and what is that related to, and helps us. Because if the person had one day of bleeding, that's a problem, right? And they're really tired. If the reason that they're tired is their diet, I'm really happy because I know that if I fix the diet, I'll fix digestion and blood at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Tell us where entrepreneurs can find you.
So everyone can find me at conceivable.com. If you hit the little chat button there, you can get to me directly. Also, I'm most popular, not popular, but most commonly can be found on TikTok every day, your fertility expert. And I do a live show, an hour to 90 minutes every single day. So it's a great show, usually in the evenings, but just set your notifications and you'll get a reminder for it. And if you're using the app, we have private lives for the people who are app users with Zoom, so I can get to know you guys.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential, so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.